everyone, welcome back. Let's get into this because there's a lot to unpack, and honestly, it's hard not to shake your head at what we watched. Kody and Robyn Brown are being framed here as misunderstood, but that simply doesn't hold up. What we're really seeing is greed, deception, and a carefully crafted distraction. This whole so-called backdoor deal storyline, it's smoke and mirrors. The real goal seems pretty clear. Turn Janelle and Meri against each other so they're too busy fighting to notice what Kody and Robyn are actually doing behind the scenes. And this all came to a head in the tell-all we saw last night. The problem is, Suki either doesn't understand the situation or she doesn't care to dig into it. There's no accountability, no tough questions, no review of documents, no real due diligence. She isn't acting like a journalist here, she's acting like someone helping push a false narrative. As a result, we got an entire episode wasted on a storyline that paints Janelle as the villain against Meri, when in reality, the true villains are sitting right in front of us, Kody and Robyn. Now let's talk about what actually happened. At the very start of the episode, we learned that Robyn shows up at the last possible moment, in the spring of 2025, likely around March. And what does she want? She wants Janelle and Meri to sign an NDA. Not just that, she wants Meri to agree to hold her harmless. No claims, no future legal action, no speaking publicly about how this deal went down. In short, Robyn wants protection from any consequences related to the property and, more importantly, from the fact that she never paid Meri what she owed her from the proceeds of Meri's home. That's not a small ask. That's a massive red flag. Here's what we know, and I've said this before because it matters. Janelle, Kody, and Meri all signed the documents back in January of 2025. They agreed to transfer the property. They agreed to the sale terms with the buyer. The holdup wasn't them. It was Robyn. She didn't sign until late February or early March of 2025. She was the one refusing to finalize the transfer and approve the distribution. During that time, Janelle was understandably stressed. There was a deadline on the buyer's offer, and the sale was at risk of falling apart. Meanwhile, Robyn was quietly stonewalling and then preparing a completely different story to explain her behavior. This is where the manipulation starts. Robyn tells us that when they bought Coyote Pass, it was her dream, that she was deeply invested, that she came into the marriage 1,000% in, that she envisioned the whole family living together on this land, united. And because of that, she says, it was just so hard for her to let go, even though everyone else had. Now listen carefully to what she's doing here. Instead of admitting that she was delaying the sale, demanding legal protections, and trying to shield herself from accusations of defrauding Meri, she reframes the situation. Suddenly, she's not the obstacle, she's the victim. The last believer in a broken family dream. The only one still holding on to the idea of unity while everyone else moved on. It's a familiar tactic. Remind the audience that she didn't join this family to watch it fall apart. Emphasize how devastated she still is. Position herself as the emotional casualty of everyone else's decisions. And that's the point. This isn't about land. It's about optics. She wants you focused on her sadness, not her actions. On her broken dream, not the NDA. On her emotional attachment, not the unpaid money. It's a classic case of playing the victim to avoid responsibility. Because the truth is, Robyn was never emotionally tied to Coyote Pass in the way she's claiming now. That story just doesn't match the facts. What Robyn was really tied to wasn't the land itself, it was the money. She didn't want Meri to be paid. And she absolutely didn't want Meri talking about how this sale actually went down. Most of all, she didn't want to have to repay Meri for the proceeds she took from the sale of Kody and Meri's Las Vegas home. Money that was then used for Robyn's own housing situation. And here's where the timeline really matters. Robyn is making all these emotional claims about Coyote Pass after she has already moved into the so-called Destiny home, a $2.1 million property. That home was made possible because money from the Vegas house sale was redirected in a way that, frankly, raises serious ethical and legal questions. The house on Hash Knife Trail was, for lack of a better word, unclean. It was purchased using funds that came from the sale of the Vegas home, a home that Kody and Meri owned together as joint tenants. And joint tenancy is very clear. Each party owns 50% of the equity. Not 100%. 50. Meri should have received at least half of those proceeds. Instead, Kody took all of it and gave it to Robyn. Then, to wash their hands of that transaction, they bought a new home, placed it into a trust, and used the equity from the Hashknife home as the down payment. In doing so, Meri's financial interest was effectively erased. That's not just unfair. It looks a lot like unjust enrichment. Conversion. Fraud. And the key issue here is that they are still benefiting from that money to this day. That means Meri could potentially have multiple legal claims stemming from this situation. Now here's where Janelle comes in. Because she does not buy Robyn's story. Not for a second. Janelle has made it pretty clear that she believes Robyn is playing a role, saying what she thinks she's supposed to say, acting the way she believes she's expected to act. Almost like she's following a script. I'm the wife who loved the family. I'm heartbroken it fell apart. I'm the victim here. Janelle doesn't believe that Robyn truly feels this way. She sees it as performative. In Janelle's view, Robyn has been cast by Kody and maybe by herself as the beautiful, compassionate wife who loved the family deeply and was devastated by its collapse. The innocent one. The wounded one. And Janelle believes Robyn leans into that role because she thinks that's what Kody wants her to be. Now, maybe that's true to some degree. Maybe that is the role she plays. Robyn the actress, right? But I think it's more complicated than that. I don't even think Robyn fully sees what she's doing. And I don't think Janelle or Meri have been able to fully untangle the manipulation happening here. Because this performance isn't just about pleasing Kody, it's also about covering her tracks. She's presenting herself as something she's not, and that benefits her on multiple levels. She may be doing this for Kody, yes, but she may also be doing it to Kody. It's entirely possible she doesn't show him her full authentic self. Because if she did, he might not be able to stay with her. And that's the uncomfortable truth. Robyn benefits from pretending to be who she needs to be in order to get what she wants from Kody. And then she plays the victim to the public, so she's never exposed as someone who knowingly participated in financial wrongdoing. That's why Kody and Robyn feel so similar in this situation. This story doesn't feel accidental. It feels coordinated. A narrative they built together. That's why I don't believe Kody actually buys Robyn's emotional explanation either. I think it's just the storyline they've agreed to present. So when Robyn says she couldn't let go of Coyote Pass because of her broken dream, Janelle calls nonsense. And honestly, I agree. That story doesn't hold up. Meanwhile, Kody keeps going on and on about this so-called backdoor deal, which once again serves as a distraction. It keeps everyone focused on the wrong issue. And we don't get anywhere near the real truth until the very end of the episode, when Janelle finally reveals what actually happened. After nearly 2 months of delays, Robyn comes back with a full legal contract. Not just paperwork, but a sweeping document that includes a hold-harmless clause, an NDA, a waiver of future legal claims, and a demand for silence about the entire transaction. Then we see a clip that hadn't aired earlier this season, and honestly, it tells you everything you need to know. Kody flat out says he has no legal obligation to pay Meri a dime. According to him, they don't owe her anything. He even admits he's using a loophole, and he says it openly, almost proudly. That right there should stop everyone in their tracks. When someone tells you they're exploiting a loophole on purpose, that's not confusion. That's intent. And it strongly suggests this whole strategy likely started with Kody. This wasn't accidental. This was planned. Now, Janelle does acknowledge that to some extent her attorney suggested pushing the sale through just to get it done. But here's the key point. It never actually happened. The plan wasn't executed. Nothing was finalized in that way. Jen's response to all of this is fair. And to be clear, I'm not saying Janelle is to blame here. But I do think Janelle should have stayed firmly aligned with Meri and avoided these side conversations with Kody altogether. If she had stuck strictly to that plan, Kody and Robyn wouldn't have been able to twist the narrative and throw her under the bus the way they did. Because now, Meri can't trust either of them. And who could blame her? How does it even make sense that she wouldn't receive her rightful portion of the property? How dare they even attempt to go behind her back like that? And it almost doesn't matter who started the idea, because both Kody and Janelle ended up pointing fingers at each other. You just watched it happen. Janelle says, Kody said it. Kody implies Janelle agreed. Whoever said what? The truth is this. What they told Meri to her face did not match what they were doing behind her back. And that is exactly why we're here today. That's why Meri doesn't trust them. That's why the relationship could never survive. Because they were willing to cut her out, sacrifice her interest, and let her absorb the damage while they protected themselves. Now here's a crucial detail that doesn't get enough attention. Robyn very strategically did not sign the document dividing the parcels. Kody steps in and suddenly looks generous, agreeing to a 25, 25, 25, 25 split. He gets Janelle and Meri to sign off on that division in January of 2025. And then, nothing. Robyn refuses to sign. On the show, Robyn claims she's holding off because she wants everything divided fairly. But by January of 2025, it was divided fairly. The paperwork was done. Meri wasn't holding anything up. Janelle wasn't holding anything up. Robyn was. At the time the buyer entered into the agreement, the deeds were still in their original form. Under those deeds, Meri only owned 1/3 of one parcel. So the so-called backdoor deal would have involved scrapping the agreed upon 25% split and selling the property under the old deed structure. If that had happened, Meri would have received 1/3 of a single parcel, not the 25% she was entitled to under the new agreement. And the only reason that was even possible is because Robyn refused to sign the updated division. Then Robyn turns around and frames herself as the protector, claiming she's holding everything up for Meri's sake, saying she'll be the rock in the way. But that's simply not true. This is why Jen is so angry. Because if that conversation had gone the way Robyn implied, the sale would have gone through under the old deeds, and Meri would have been left with almost nothing. The only reason that didn't happen is because Meri had attorneys involved. That outcome was never going to fly. So when Robyn finally presents that sweeping NDA, it's not hard to imagine Meri's lawyers reading it and immediately saying absolutely not. And Jen makes an important point here. It doesn't actually matter who first brought up the idea of selling. That's not the issue. The issue is that the conversation happened at all. It shows that even while Janelle believed she was advocating for Meri, she was saying something different to Kody. And this is where the deeper dynamic comes into play. Despite everything, Janelle is still behaving like a wife in a polygamous marriage. She's still treating Kody as the head of the household, still going to him directly, still trying to reason with him, still believing on some level that he's capable of fair negotiation. Instead of fully stepping back, relying only on legal counsel, and removing herself emotionally, she's holding on to the idea that she can somehow get Kody and Robyn to be reasonable. But the hard truth is this. They are exactly who they've shown themselves to be, and believing otherwise is what keeps everyone stuck. Maybe Janelle was trying to see the best in them. Maybe she was just focused on getting the money she needed, and to be fair, she did need that money. But even so, what almost happened here was a deep betrayal of Meri. The important thing, though, is this. It didn't happen. And it didn't happen because Meri stood her ground and relied on her attorneys. Yes, the conversation took place. Yes, the option existed. But in the end, Meri said no. And that made all the difference. The real truth is that Robyn was the one holding everything up. And the reason is pretty clear. She didn't want anyone talking about the fact that she defrauded Meri. She didn't want anyone pointing out where the money went. And she certainly didn't want to be held accountable for spending massive amounts of money, while claiming she couldn't repay Meri because she didn't have it. So after weeks, nearly 2 months of total silence, Robyn suddenly reappears with a fully drafted legal document. Not a discussion, not a negotiation, a completed contract. And what's in it? A confidentiality agreement, a hold-harmless clause. In other words, Meri would give up any right to pursue her money, and everyone involved would be legally silenced from ever talking about what happened. Janelle describes it perfectly. It felt like a power play. Robyn had been completely absent from the conversation for 6 to 8 weeks. Then, at the very end, she shows up with paperwork in hand and expects everyone to sign. Meanwhile, the buyer's deal expires. Kody keeps pushing, saying, "You've got to talk to Meri, you've got to talk to Meri," while Meri is doing exactly what she should be doing, working through her lawyer. That's why Janelle calls it a power move. Because it was. And let's be honest, Robyn hasn't participated in real discussions about Coyote Pass in years. She let Kody speak for her. Always. Zero direct conversations. Yet suddenly, she's the one delivering legal terms and demanding silence. What's especially strange is that Robyn tries to paint Meri as being overly emotional or difficult for only communicating through attorneys. But Janelle should have been just as offended by that document. Anyone should have been. The difference is that Janelle doesn't have legal leverage here. Janelle signed a gift letter. That's a huge detail. In order for Kody to use Janelle's equity from the Vegas home sale, she signed a letter stating that the money was a gift. Legally, that means she cannot ask for it back. She's already acknowledged this herself. She has no legal recourse. Meri, however, does. She's the only one with valid legal claims related to that money. And that's why this matters so much. Here's how the timeline lines up. The buyer's deal expires sometime in February. That's when Robyn presents the NDA and hold-harmless agreement. Robyn still doesn't sign off on the property split until March. The sale doesn't actually close until April. Throughout all of this, Meri had already signed. She wasn't the problem. Robyn was. And that's where the so-called backdoor deal comes in, after the original deal expires. But again, it never happens. Because Meri refuses to be strong-armed. Now, when you look back at that moment during Kody's so-called apology tour, Meri's reaction makes perfect sense. Of course she didn't want to talk to him. He had just tried to silence her. He had just tried to cheat her out of money. He had just tried to pressure her into giving up her legal rights and agreeing never to speak about what he and Robyn had done. That's not reconciliation. That's coercion. It's honestly shocking that Janelle even entertained the idea of a backdoor deal at all. Thank goodness it didn't happen. And the only reason it didn't happen is because Meri stood firm and let her lawyers do their job. And that is why they're really angry with her. They're not mad because she delayed anything. They're mad because she wouldn't stay quiet. They're mad because she wouldn't sign away her right to sue. They're mad because she wouldn't agree to pretend none of this ever happened. And because she wouldn't help protect them from being exposed. Meri even hints that this isn't the first time NDAs have been used with her. That alone should make everyone pause. Because when silence keeps being legally required, it usually means there's something someone is very afraid of being heard. So when they say Meri was the one stopping the sale, yes, she absolutely was. And honestly, good for her. Because what Meri is really saying is this: I will not be silenced again. And there it is. That's the heart of the issue. She stopped the sale because she refused to sign a contract that would force her to stay quiet. She refused to give up her voice. And Kody does not like that. Not one bit. So instead, he flips the script and blames her. Meri stopping everything. But what he really means is, Meri won't do what we want. She has made it very clear she will not be silenced anymore. Which brings up a much bigger question. What was the previous NDA about? Because Meri herself has hinted that this isn't the first time something like this has happened. So what was that agreement? Where is it? What did it cover? Who benefited from it? We don't know. And we can't ask. The only legal documents on record between Kody and Meri are their divorce petition and the divorce summary. There's nothing in there about a non-disclosure agreement. Nothing about not speaking negatively. Nothing about silence. So that NDA exists somewhere else, off the books, outside what we can see. And suddenly, a lot of things start to make sense. For years, Meri kept saying, "There's more to the story." And people brushed it off. They questioned her. They doubted her. Meanwhile, we'd watch her downplay things on camera, act like what we were seeing wasn't real, or soften the truth. So what was she legally prevented from saying? What was she locked into? And how often has this tool, NDAs, been used to keep her quiet? Now let's be very clear about something. This NDA wasn't just Robyn's idea. Yes, Robyn physically presented it at the last minute, but Kody benefits from it just as much as she does. This was a joint move. Kody and Robyn together. And here's the thing. Robyn had no legal claim to Meri's marital property. None. No right to that money. No right to those assets. In fact, her liability is arguably greater than Kody's because she is the one who directly benefited from those funds. She was enriched by the marital assets of Kody and Meri, assets that were never hers. In plain terms, Robyn took what didn't belong to her, and she still has it. Kody did it too, yes, but Robyn is still actively benefiting from that money today. That's why this NDA matters so much. That's why the silence is so important to them. So this whole backdoor deal story, it's a distraction, a smokescreen. It keeps everyone arguing about the wrong thing while covering up the real issue, the taking of Meri's money, and the repeated attempts to legally silence her so she can't expose it. And now, if the previews are any indication, Robyn is going to pivot. Next week, she'll try to frame it as though she couldn't talk to Meri because Meri is dangerous. Kody already started that narrative in this episode, saying Meri would murder him if she talked about Jen, which is ridiculous. But this is what they always do. They paint Meri as unstable, emotional, unpredictable, too much, because Meri knows the truth. And the truth teller is always the one they try to discredit. Meanwhile, Robyn plays the victim, soft-spoken, heartbroken, afraid, while benefiting from fraud, past and present. And that's why people are angry. Because Meri wasn't difficult. She wasn't delaying things for fun. She was protecting herself. She was refusing to be silenced again. And that takes strength. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop them in the comments below. If this helped bring clarity, give the video a thumbs up. Make sure you're subscribed and don't forget to click the bell so you never miss an update. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, besties.